And just like that, we are back with another Neurodiversity Stories Season 2. Guys, thank you so much. Firstly, before I even start on this, thank you so much for everyone that's joined in on live. I know you will be joining in shortly. We've had a bit of a technical issue with StreamYard, but we are back and we are all prepped and ready to go. So let's kick off with thank you so much, everyone, for joining Series 2 of Neurodiversity Stories. Get my words out. I'm so excited to talk to you all, guys. So what is this season going to be bringing you? Well, it's going to be bringing you a jam-packed list of incredible people that are going to be sharing their stories, their expertise, and everything that is going on within the neurodiverse community. So as always, we cannot do this without your support. So if please, again, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Last season, we reached many different countries, lots of different countries, very far away. A lot of the countries wasn't able to watch this live due to time difference. So we do put this onto our YouTube channel, we pop onto our website, and we obviously create a podcast as well. So if you aren't watching this live, then again, you will be able to catch all of the information from there as well. So again, do let us know where you are tuning in from. And as always, guys, it's always good to get an insight into any of the topics that we're covering. Again, over the season, if there are sensitive topics, and we will mention this in any of our promotional advertising that we're doing as well. So we will let you know about this. But if there's anything that sparks an interest or a question that you have, please do drop them in the comments, and we will work our way through these as well. So as always, a massive thank you to the people that are watching it, a massive thank you to everyone that supports us, and again, a massive thank you again to our sponsors. We've had some incredible sponsors over the seasons, and Promova is our latest sponsor, and they are absolutely incredible. Promova is a one-step solution for all of your language learning needs, and the first platform to introduce a special dyslexia mode. And I was absolutely impressed when I sat down with them and they were telling me all about this. I was absolutely thrilled because I've learned, I tried to teach myself language many times before, and this has been an absolute game changer. So we all know the struggle of learning a language. It can feel massively overwhelming, especially if you have dyslexia, but there is good news. Promova is a language learning solution with over 15 million users, and that just blows my mind as well. So they understand the challenges. They become the first to introduce a special dyslexia mode for their app and their web platform, and they will also be named the Adaptive Language Learning Platform of the Year. So they have absolutely some amazing accreditations behind them. Designed a multi-skilled approach, personal learning plans, real-life vocabulary in short lessons. So we do have an offer on there, and we will put that into the comment section if you are looking to learn 12 languages or even just one language. You pick between the 12, and you will get a 50% discount. So I want to share with you a little bit more about our sponsors. So please do take a look.
Picture this: mastering a new language in just 10 minutes a day. Too good to be true? With Promova, it's a reality. We are a one-stop solution for all your language learning needs. This innovative platform has all the tools to create a unique learning plan based on your goals and interests. With Promova, you can learn languages through bite-sized lessons, anywhere, anytime. Learn vocabulary you'll actually use in real life. Polish your speaking skills and train your ear with audio lessons. Dive into books for full immersion. Need some personalized guidance? Our expert tutors are just one click away, whether you prefer one-on-one or group lessons. Achieve your language learning goals with Promova.
So as mentioned, guys, the link is in the bio for that. So please do check them out. Now, the main event, the show, the reason why you're all here is to speak to my good friend Lou, and we are going to be introducing her shortly. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about our guest today. She's doing, again, absolutely incredible work. So Lou Barnes is the founder of Unlock Learning. Lou is a former primary school teacher who transformed her 20 years of classroom experience into a groundbreaking approach for dyslexic learners. Frustrated by seeing bright students struggle with their technical literacy methods, Lou discovered neuro-linguistic programming. I'm glad I got that right. NLP, and founded Unlock Learning. For 15 years, she's been using this innovative NLP-based process to help children and adults overcome reading and special needs difficulties. Lou's mission, which is one I'm absolutely aligned with, is to share our knowledge and change how we can support dyslexic learners in education. This is going to be an incredible conversation with Lou. So please sit back, grab yourself a coffee. Well, hopefully you've got a coffee already, or some water. Sit back and let's introduce Lou. Good morning, Lou Barnes. That sounds very formal. Good morning, Lou.
Good morning, Darren. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on to Neurodiversity Stories. Lou, I've obviously been following the incredible work that you've been doing from over on LinkedIn, the content that you share. For the viewers and the guests that don't know you, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Certainly. So, yeah, I'm Lou. And I think you sort of summed it up quite well in the introduction. I was a primary school teacher, and I loved it, loved being in the classroom, but it got to the point where it was actually too painful for me to see very bright, creative children who were struggling because they just couldn't understand how to read or write. And it became a bit of, well, not a bit, a total mission of mine, because I just had a sort of knowing that there had to be a better way. There had to be something more we could do. So I'm going to keep this bit as brief as possible. Yeah. So I left the classroom on a mission to find a better way forward. And now I use the process that I've refined and adapted since then, which is, as you mentioned, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming based. And now I work with children and adults using this process and transform the way they're able to see and feel and experience letters and words on a page. And it really is my mission and my purpose. I absolutely love it.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lou. What was your kind of experience then back then when you were in the teaching side of it? And you mentioned about, students struggling and you see, what was that kind of, no one likes to see anyone struggle in any way, certain form, but obviously you knew that there was talent there, and maybe it was just a case of just being able to nurture it in a different way. What was that kind of experience like, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, you're absolutely right. It was seeing that there was creativity and talent, and so often the children who were struggling, they were bursting with talent. They were able to see something and explain it to me. They could articulate their ideas brilliantly. They were fabulous creative thinkers. They could come up with all kinds of solutions. And then when it came to reading or writing, it was like there was this huge barrier to them. And I think what really struck me was the effect it was having on the students, because I kind of watched them withdraw. I was teaching quite young children, sort of 8-9-year-olds at the time, and they sort of somehow lose some of their spark as the year went on. Not all of them, thankfully, but for a lot of them. And then there were the children who were labelled lazy or naughty or disruptive. And I always say, I don't believe in lazy or naughty children. There's a reason for this. And they, again, were the children that just, I believe, were so frustrated because they couldn't do what the other children seemed to do easily. And with the best will in the world, these children were maybe going out to additional phonics groups and having the sort of information put into their heads, if you like, over and over the same information again. But what I was seeing was the information wasn't going in, it wasn't sticking. So what we were doing, what we were trying to do, wasn't working for these children. It's like I always liken it to trying to sow seeds in a desert. You can keep putting the seeds out, but without the right environment, they're not going to grow. Yeah, so that was kind of my experience of watching children they were frustrated, and they were, some of them, losing confidence. Children who desperately wanted to learn, I believe they wanted to learn, just not being able to.
And we think about that, the kind of the frustration side of it. You think as adults, really, if you were to do something for, say, 5-6 years that you struggled with and it got no better, or there was no, when we go into a workplace, for instance, we can decide whether we stay in that workplace or we stay in that industry of that workplace, and does it work in these different things. As a child going into education, unless you move schools, unless there's a reason for that, and even if you move schools and the problem's not, and I say the problem in the sense of teaching in a different way is not, there's not a solution for this, then you're just literally just doing the same thing in a different building. But I always think of that like my school days, the long period of time, like 5-6 years or 5 years, and then you go into sixth form in college and other things like that, if you choose to. But that's a long time, isn't it, to be built up of frustration and have that confidence level continuously.
Absolutely, it's so long, and I can't imagine going to a place every day, from 9 till 3 o'clock, and every day being faced with something that, with the best will in the world, I cannot do, however hard I try, and then being surrounded by other people who just seem to get it. So therefore probably feeling like I'm the one that's, I don't know, I don't want to put vocabulary on this at all, but I'm the one that's not right, or whatever people feel about themselves, having a view of themselves, which I think is totally not the case, but you can understand how it would feel that way. And as you say, you can't escape. You can't just decide not to go to school. Yeah. So to me, I am amazed at the amount of students I come across who have dealt with this for so long, and yet they still go to school every day, and they still sit there and they still try their hardest. Take my hat off to them, because they just don't give up, most of them. It's amazing.
Is it that kind of like that hope that I always remember, because my school days, in the sense, I've just you said a phrase, just don't get it, and that phrase is almost been kind of embedded into my mind. I remember using that phrase throughout my school days continuously, sort of head in hand, and I would say, why don't I just get it? Why? And seeing everyone else in the class put their hand up and do all these different things, and it was almost like, why? What am I? And I was trying to find different strategies around these things to do, and it just wouldn't. So that phrase, when you said it, it's literally like it's been embedded. But do you think it's that level of hope that one day they might just be able to get it, and that hope of continuously going into the educational side of it?
I don't know. I guess it must be. I just think they're amazing, resilient children that just won't give up. And of course, for some of them, there comes a point where it's too much, and anxiety and overwhelm, and it's exhausting for them as well. So exhausting. Children who are struggling with reading and writing, they work harder than anybody, I believe. Just to keep trying to get through the day. They work so very hard. It makes me really angry, actually, when people say they're just lazy, or they're not trying, or they're not working hard enough, because that just isn't the case.
Because the lazy comments, I guess, come out of what the output is. So the output would be, you didn't get good results, so you're lazy. You didn't finish that project. So it's almost like it's aimed on the finished product is, did you get the grades? Did you finish the product? Did you build that in woodwork? Did you do this? And if not, it's lazy. But I know from being dyslexic myself that the amount of headspace, not headspace, but the amount it drains me to think, overthink, overanalyze, come back, think, try and look at different things. And you do run into a kind of a burnout mentality within that side of it. So categorizing is lazy. And I guess also we do tend to think about, mental health and well-being now more than we have, which is amazing. Still lots more to do. But we tend to think of that from an adult's point of view. We don't think of this as a young child's kind of point of view as much. I don't think in when we think of that school setting of someone sitting in the first year of secondary school, that element of burnout can happen and does happen, and it's just trying to find different ways of strategies to help and support that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a really good point you made, that we do think of burnout as an adult thing, and it definitely applies to younger people as well. Certainly the teenagers I deal with, and by then, of course, they've spent years dealing with this issue. And again, some of them are still spending hours trying to study, or still doing their very best, but they are literally burning out. They are exhausted by it. Definitely. And some of them, something I find a lot, which I don't know is always picked up, is that some people appear to be able to read beautifully. They can read the words on the page, but they can't remember a thing they've read. And this happens there you go. Yeah, it comes up a lot for me, especially in older children. So if you imagine a child studying for GCSEs, they're spending hours sitting there trying to read the notes. Everybody thinks they can read because they can say the words. But actually, if nothing's penetrating, it's like a force field, I always think. If nothing's actually making it into their mind, they may as well not have read it. And oh my goodness, the exhaustion and frustration is incredible.
So it's such a great point, Lou, and so a lot of the time in different roles I've had in different jobs, I've had to do a lot of presentations, and especially if you're doing a talk and then you have some slides up and some things. But I remember, when I was in kind of very high up kind of senior roles where you had to give presentations on stats and figures and all the other bits and pieces, and I would systematically remember everything that was on the page by reading it into a dictaphone then not dictaphone into my phone excuse me, and then continuously playing it back to me. Then I would go on a dog walk and I would play this back to me. I would walk around the park, wherever I'm going, into the fields or something else, basically speaking what the presentation is, so my reading with my dyslexia, I can see it. When I get a little bit tired or a bit stressed, it starts to move around. Now, that's just the way but I can never say 20 minutes in, it's going to move. I can't, I don't know. It could be 4 minutes. It could be 20 minutes. It could be an hour. It could be absolutely fine. But that moment and that fear that I've had to kind of deal with, knowing that 1 minute I can see what the words are on the screen are, and 1 minute I can't, that used to terrify me because so I tried to find different ways of being able to deal with this. So when I have had the slides on, I would write the numbers literally down on the book, and I'd have one slide. And once I've done the one slide, I would cross it off. I would just put a little line through it. And then I would then move on to the second slide. And in my head, I knew what the second slide was because I'd listened to it so many times. And that was my strategy. So if I couldn't see what slide 4 was saying, I'd look on my sheet and go, okay, slide 4 is this. This is the information. I need to relay this. And that could be on a 30-minute presentation.
Wow.
So when we say people are lazy, when it's being categorized as the word lazy, you think for a 30-minute or 40-minute presentation, the level of work and hours that goes into it, just in case. Now, I might not need the book and the line and all the other bits and pieces. I might be able to just see it and I can correlate with it and read and go off of what I need to do. But it's having that backup. And I think that's the strategy behind. So that's a little insight into mine.
Yeah, that what you've just described. Thank you for that, because that absolutely encapsulates the kind of effort that somebody who's dealing with dyslexia has to put in, from the young child to yourself. So yeah, thank you. It's a great illustration of how hard it must be.
And that's just one thing, but yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure.
What's your kind of relationship with dyslexia? What's your when did you first kind of discover what dyslexia was, how it kind of, your kind of relationship with dyslexia? What was that kind of like?
Okay, so I'm not dyslexic at all.
Yeah.
And it really did come from the children. It was born of that frustration and curiosity, actually. I think curiosity drives a lot of what I've done and what I still do. I'm learning all the time from my students, from other people, from, you know, the conversations like you have on neurodiversity stories, you know, brilliant sources of information. So for me, it was driven by seeing the children I couldn't help. And that was something that had to be put right in my head. And just thinking, okay, what is happening? What is actually happening? I'm fascinated by humans, human behavior, what makes us tick. So there was that strand, but also at the same time, friends of mine were studying neuro-linguistic programming, and I was absorbing their books and sort of talking to them about it all the time. And so that was very good timing. And as my frustration with not being able to help the children in my class that were struggling grew, my interest in NLP also grew. So it was almost meant to be, I think, that the two went together. So I literally set out on a mission to find a better way. I wanted to know what was the experience that the children were having in, you know, when they looked at words on a page. So it was more like what's going on for them inside, because trying to put the information in isn't working. So what's going on in their brains that's caused, I don't want to say the problem, because I think dyslexic brains, any neurodiverse brain, it is incredible. You know, we all think differently and we need that. But what's causing the problem with reading and writing specifically? So I guess my experience came about and grew when I realised the power of the subconscious mind through studying neuro-linguistic programming, and realised and learned about how the part of the brain we're not aware of, the unconscious or subconscious part, drives so many of our behaviours, you know, right down to how we choose what we eat. You know, so many things we don't really think about how we're making decisions or how we're behaving, or those habits we want to, maybe we'd rather not have, like nail biting or whatever. It's our subconscious driving it. And I also sort of, from realizing that and learning about, through neuro-linguistic programming, how we can alter our behaviors and patterns of behaviors by dealing with the subconscious mind, that kind of came about to thinking, well, hang on, what's happening? What's the pattern of behavior? What's somebody actually experiencing when they look at words and letters if they can't read? From that, I came across sort of thought processes in NLP that said people who are good spellers, they learn visually, they memorize what the words look like and can call that to mind. And if you watch somebody who struggles with spelling, they're not using the visual part of their brain. So from that came the idea that these are all connected. Okay, so delving deeper into the process and over quite a few years, I realised, and also through asking a lot of questions of people with dyslexia, I realised that every single person that was struggling to read or spell, when they looked at words on a page, and you mentioned earlier, the words can start moving, in some way the letters and words were not behaving in what I call a still, stable manner. Now, from what I understand and from my experiences, every experience of dyslexia is different. Okay, because all our brains are different, wonderfully. Thank goodness. So I've had things like words disappearing, blurring, swirling, jumping around, being very tiny, being very big. And often people can't articulate it because to them it's perfectly normal. So you assume that's the same for everybody potentially. So I realised, or it came to light, that somehow the subconscious brain was doing something to the text which made it impossible to make sense of letters and words, right? If the words keep moving around, how do you ever know what a spelling looks like, or what a word looks like, or how
Very
it
true.
forms. That's not something you can do. And then from that came, from my knowledge of neurolinguistic programming and talking to other people who had ideas and theories on it and had delved into this a bit themselves, a very simple process which enables us to find out what's going on, what is the brain doing. So if it's moving the letters around, it's a very simple process to then make the letters stay still. Because our brains are amazing. Neuroplasticity is such an amazing thing, and it's never too late to learn a new pattern. And if our brains are just shown a new way to do something, we can really quickly create a new neural pathway. And the brain goes, oh, okay, yeah, let's keep the letters still then. And that's the game changer.
I've always been absolutely fascinated in NLP, in the sense of when you said, changing the pattern, and because I always think about trying to learn a new skill. So I'm learning a new language at the moment, and I've always wanted to learn a new language, which has been amazing. However, you always struggle with, as I get older, I always struggle. I think, oh my goodness, how am I going to learn this? But there's so many things that I think about driving a car, for instance. The amount of time that I spent dedicated to learning how to drive the car, and now it's just instant. Sometimes I'll get to work or get to the office or get wherever I'm going and think, how did I get here? It is that kind of that motion where I've now got into, I guess, I don't know the correct terminology, but it's just like a routine. I just know when to change gear. I have that feeling. I know when to put the clutch down. I know how to do this. And before it was kind of, oh my goodness, I have to try and do all of these different things. But I guess I've created, if I'm right, I created that pathway to learn that. And now it's kind of, I can't use correct terminology, but it's embedded. Is that correct? Am I on the right?
Yeah, sounds perfect. And goodness, yes, I remember I was not good at learning to drive a car. It wasn't my superpower at all. But yes, as you say now, it is embedded, I would say, is a perfect word. And someone was able to teach you what to do, because you wouldn't have just known, right? You can't just get in a car and just know how to do it.
No.
And it's the same thing. So it's finding out what somebody is doing. So I was terrible at changing gear, for example. So somebody had to say to me, we need to put your foot further down on the clutch. This is what's causing the problem, and this is how we put it right. And I think it's just the same, really. So using the NLP enables me to say, this is what the problem is. This is the block. This is why you're struggling. And this is how we put it right. So,
how long does it take to get to trying something? I'm not saying like completely master, although you master certain things to get to the next level and these things. But do you know how long it takes to get from that initial, I know where the steering wheel is, and that's probably as far as I can go, to actually being able to drive and resonate that with other things? Like how many, to change those pathways and then consistently, what would you say the process would look like for that? Or is there a certain amount of time, or is there a certain
for the reading, you mean, at the moment, or generally?
Just reading, or just generally, just try and embed in those different kind of pathways.
I think it depends how you do it. It's a really good question, Darren. And I think the perceived thing is when you've done 10,000 hours, isn't it? Then you're an expert and you can flow, and that's lovely. We don't have 10,000 hours to spend on everything, do we?
That'd be nice.
How long I've spent driving, mind. But I think it depends how you do it as well, because I think there's efficient ways and there's inefficient ways.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about working directly with the subconscious mind, if you like, getting to the heart of the matter and finding where the pattern our behavior is driven from, that's a very efficient way of dealing with something. So it's quite quick because you go straight to the root of it. So for the reading, reading, spelling, whatever we're dealing with, because, dyslexia shows up in so many different ways, very different for each person. It can be a couple of hours is normally enough to create that new neural pathway. to let's go back to the movement, although I know that doesn't happen for everyone. So to have moving letters to keeping the letters still, that's just a couple of hours generally.
Wow. That's blown my mind.
Blew mine. It blows mine every time it happens. Okay, after 15 years, I still get goosebumps.
Because it at the ground old age of 47, I thought to myself that's just it. That's just the way things happen. So and I guess it's funny. I've probably spent more time trying to find different ways around it to then actually trying to not solve, but to try and find different solutions. So it's interesting. Do you think interest plays a massive part in certain things? I mean, because we take up hobbies, don't we, and then we become good at that because we have that interest, and we hopefully if you can go and work in a job you like because it's in that industry that you like, and when we go back to school, that side of it, we have a plethora of different lessons that we have to have. The structured ones, the English, the maths, the science, these are the other things. And then you have the other ones that are kind of given. But it's not until, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because my education was not as great as it could have been. But when you get to fifth year and sixth form, you then have to pick subjects that you enjoyed. But it's 5 years. I'm not sure if that's your only point in the UK, if that's your only point to then start picking subjects that you like, but you have to go through 5 years of doing all of the subjects to then see which one you like to then extend that type of subject. So interest, I guess, would you say interest plays a big part?
I would, definitely. I mean, I can remember some of the subjects I had to do at school, sewing being one of them, that I absolutely hated. I had no interest in it. And I certainly wasn't very good at it. Because I think it's a natural human thing, isn't it, to want to do what we enjoy? And I mean, it makes so much sense. Let's play to our strengths. That's so important, isn't it?
I want to touch on the subject you mentioned very early on in our conversation. You mentioned about the kind of the spark and the confidence that that a child kind of sadly loses, and it's very difficult to gain back. And you do see this because if you see, in primary school in the UK, in primary school, they're very kind of confident and everything's great, and then obviously it goes up to like the final year, and then they have I think it's the SATs, and then it's just and then that kind of, I find that that's the kind of the first stage where they're being tested on their educational output. And then you can just see, where are they going to go for big school, what class they're going to be going in. And then it's then you slowly start seeing, unless you can kind of grab this and say, actually, I can really kind of help and nurture that confidence, you do see it dwindle. And it's such a difficult age to lose that confidence. And I feel that if you then have 5-6 years of non-confidence, then going into the workplace with lack of confidence, it's at what point do we get to where we can kind of bridge that gap and extend that confidence element to it? It would be great to be able to do that, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, we would catch. I've always thought if a child is struggling to read or write, by the time they get to year 3, first year junior, if we're in the UK, then really we should be looking at them and asking what is happening, what is preventing them from learning, because it won't be they don't want to learn. It just won't. That's my belief anyway. So that's the point at which, again, in my ideal world, on my mission, when I've shared this knowledge with everybody, because it's so easy to do, it's really shareable, it's really trainable, then somebody goes in and sort of finds out what's happening for the child and helps them stabilize their text, and then it's not an issue. That's my ideal world. Of course, that isn't how it is right now. I don't know. I just breaks my heart that children are losing confidence. And of course, it's so important to nurture other skills, because, as I say to my students, you don't ever have to love reading or be a great reader. You know, the fact that this is not your skill set doesn't matter, because you can do things I can't imagine. You know, they blow my mind, the people I talk to, the people I work with, because so many of them are super artistic or brilliant at sport, and I'm neither of those things at all, far from it. And they can just do things I can't imagine, seeing patterns, or some of them can imagine things in 3D. Wow, what an amazing skill. Not great when you're trying to see letters in 3D and read, which can happen. But, you know, amazing skills that are incredibly valuable. So we really need to celebrate everybody's different skills and try not to let that confidence go. The problem is that reading and writing is still such an intrinsic part of our education, and we're still measuring pretty much only by academic output, which is so based on reading and writing. So I think there's a real issue there between trying to keep up people's, not just children's, confidence because they've got other skills, and yet still measuring very much through literacy.
Do you think that'll always be the case? And I guess because reading and writing is, like you said, is incredibly powerful in the sense, and it's something that you need to, you know, to be able to function in the everyday world. Everything is designed from signposts to map. You know, I say maps, but for everything that you have to do to function, it is that element of the reading and writing. So we are going to be, the educational system, I guess, is always going to be measured on that. I don't know. Again, not being a teacher and an educator in this sense, I don't know another way around that unless it's contributed with, like you said, celebrating the other elements of the skills, or finding, you know, another alternative to have a child leaving from school that is struggling to read and write, down to dyslexia or you know, maybe something else, but can celebrate a lot of the other attributes that they have. And I guess when they leave school, it's the grades almost say what their last 5-6 years have been. And it's almost like your end grading on your school experience, and then you're off to the workplace, and that's it. You know, it's.
I know I don't have an answer. I wish
No,
I did. And I'd love to say I mean, the good thing is there is so much more of a conversation around this now.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for people like yourself that are making this so prominent, because it's so important. No, it really, really is. Because we need and want people with dyslexia to bring their amazing outside the box thinking and creativity, and as I say, blows my mind what people can do. We need that in society. So we need confident human beings that can go, look, I can do this. I've got this to offer. So it is super, super important. And at the same time, I don't see a change in the way reading and writing are so central to what, you know, to the way we function. I mean, there's more now. We've got much more infographic. Is that how you say it? Infographics, where you've got pictures rather than so many words. And of course, technology is helping a lot. But there's still, as you say, a lot of practical things where you need to read and write. So I guess my mission is to try and enable more people, because I work with adults too. But if we could get into schools this very simple process, which would just remove the barriers for people's learning, then they still might find reading slightly more tiring, although that does dissipate once your brain's in a better state to process the information.
Yeah.
But it would enable, what I always say is, as long as you can do the basics and function as, you know, more easily in the world of reading, you don't need to be reading great thick novels or anything. That's not important, but it is giving people the ability to move forward.
Do you think? Thank you for sharing that, Lou. And I guess we don't realize how important. If we talked about the workplace, for instance, I guess we don't realize how important your education is to an application, for instance. So if I've mentioned this before for different conversations I have with people, if I was to apply for a position now at an organization, 9 times out of 10, there will be a box and they will be asking me for my educational input. So they'll be saying, what did I do at school? Okay, so at 47 years of age, I still have to put in that box what my grades were at school, what I then did at college, what I did at then if I went to university, and then it's any other skills and other bits and pieces. Now, I'm not too sure. I know there's other organizations that are employing, people with dyslexia or individuals to work at these organizations, but we're still at that stage of that application form where they're asking. I can't even think of the math. I'm sure someone in the comments can do the math quite simply. But at 47 years of age, I know that if I filled in an application form today, there would be a box that I would have to leave blank because the qualifications I didn't get at school. However, the attributes of what I've learned in the roles I've had, the jobs I've done, companies created, and everything else, they'd still, if that sheet was put through AI, which I'm not saying that they are, but I'm saying there's a lot of organizations now that use technology like AI. Open up a whole can of worms here, but use AI to scan for certain words and things. If that box is left unchecked and not entered, then it will be dismissed on the grounds of, I don't know, maybe the educational side of it. I'm not saying it will wholeheartedly be dismissed, but we're still asking individuals throughout their period of their life what their grades were at school.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's still super important, really important when it comes down to job applications. I mean, I'm not saying it's important from my personal point of view, but as you say, on an application form, however they're dealt with, that has a real bias, doesn't it?
Yes.
There's no way around that. It just does. And I get parents, I get parents when they're quite anxious and often quite desperate to get help for their children. And often what they'll say to me is, I just need them to get the grade 4 at GCSE Maths and English. They're even when they're younger children, that's what they're aiming for, because they know that that's actually going to impact their child's life. And it is the bottom line. It is. It shouldn't so much, because we should be looking at other skills as well.
But if we're stating that to get into that college or that university, you need X. To get into that workplace, you need Y, and to be able to get those results, you need Z. And I think that's the process that is set up. So straight away from the off, you're going, well, if you want to go, if you've got I was going to use the posh terminology, but I'll just say a pamphlet that you had for a university or something. It would have what you need to get in, and I guess that journey then allows you to you can be accepted and rejected before you even start from yourself by going, okay, so I'm not going to be able to get that, and then you work down your process. So I think a lot more. And I'm a big advocate of the educational system, and I'm a massive advocate of education. I love learning. And so I'm never, I know that my education side of it was deprived of that education side of it, but I'm still learning every single day of different things. But I will know that I will be judged on that box not being able to fill in. If there was another box of all the other bits I can put in, then that's fine. But we're at that stage still where we have to have that box to fill in.
Absolutely. And I love that. There should be another box, shouldn't there? That's the answer. I think you just nailed it. That's it. Let's have another box.
We just need another box.
You solved it, Darren. I just, if it's all right, share an experience I had recently.
I would love to, because we've, is this on NLP with?
Yeah, it was just a student that I dealt with on the similar subject. If you've got
amazing,
them.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing, because we did have a question. I don't know if you can see the questions, but I think it's exactly what you just said. So can you throw some light on some examples of how you brain trained a child adult to overcome the barrier? So this is absolutely perfect timing. Thank you so much for the comment, and I will leave that to you.
Well, let's answer that one first. In fact, I can probably combine the two. So when I'll guide you roughly through my process very quickly, a very short version. So what I do is I start by getting the person, child or adult, to imagine an image, all right? So let's say a cat. It could be anything. I've had unicorns, flying horses, octo spiders, made up things, doesn't matter. We like creativity. So I get the person to imagine an image. Now I ask them questions about that image. So I might say, is it moving or is it still? Now, if it's moving, that tells me nothing because cats can move, right? However, if I say, right, I'll often say for this game, if it's a child, for this game, it's best if the cat's still. Can you make the cat stay still? Now, some children can't do that because all their mental images, all the pictures in their mind, as we call it, they just all move. Everything moves. That's the way their brain works. But of course, we don't want letters to move, and letters are just pictures. They're also mental images. We need those to be still. So we make the cat still, playing games with it, using imaginary objects, and give it a saucer of magic milk or whatever the child comes up with. It's all great fun. And then there's a whole series of questions because we also need the cat to be in front of them. It's no good if it's tucked away behind or hidden in a box, which can happen. And we also, for some people, they have something called aphantasia, which means they can't actually see mental images at all. They can't imagine a picture. Well, if you can't do that, you can't find the letters. I'm tapping here because it's where the letters is stored. You can't find the letters because you've got no picture of them. So you can't work out how to read or spell the word. So what we do is play with the image. We play with it until it's in front of them, it's still, it's the right size, not too big, it's not too small, it's not blurred. So basically get it to be how we need to see the letters and words on the page. So that's all great fun. And once that's done with the cat or whatever they've chosen, that's created a new idea in the brain, new neural pathway to say, oh, we can see pictures in our mind like this. And that's already started to create the network. So then when we come to letters, it's very easy to transfer that knowledge. Once I've done that, and I say a couple of hours, everyone's different, right? So some people, they can stabilize that image in half an hour. Some people, and actually the older you are, the longer it can take, but it's never too long. It might take a couple, 2.5 hours. And then once that's done, I can pop my teacher hat back on, and then we can start doing the more conventional things, which are also so important. We still need to know about syllables and phonics and spelling patterns. But you need to see the letters and words clearly first. Did that make sense?
That just blows my mind. I guess it's the beauty of the mind, isn't it? Of how we're and they always say, we only use a small. I hear the phrase, you only use a small percentage of your brain, and I equate that to when I'm learning something or I'm listening to something or I'm actively in the moment and I'm trying to kind of see different ways around different things. And I think that those moments for me are almost like, yeah, I can do this, or I can achieve that, and this, because we do keep on to that kind of that daily grind, that wheel, don't we, of motions that we do every single day, and I guess we've inherently ingrained, embedded, things like we get up, we brush our teeth, we have breakfast, we do this, we get washed, we dress, dry, all these different things. Those things are already embedded, but sometimes we're not allowing time to be able to change, like I said, change those pathways and do something new. And we see it more as a challenge. But you're saying with the right skills and techniques, you can start to do these different things. And I guess then that opens up to what else can I do? Yeah.
And that's the best bit, isn't it? And I think that's what it is. And it's being brave enough to do something differently. Seeing something, if you're doing the same thing, you'll get the same results. And that's what I saw as a teacher. You've got brilliant teachers and people that desperately want to help, but doing these things wasn't working. So it was a case of there has to be a way to do it differently.
Do you have to when you we were talking about the cats and the movement and stuff like that, do you have to kind of create like the surroundings to be more calm, or what is it? Because like I know that if I'm trying to learn something, I need quietness, or I'll have classical music on, no words, just the actual music in the background. For different types of work, I'd have to work in different situations. Like, funny enough, I love to work in a coffee shop, but I have headphones in, which cancel out the noise. So I love seeing the busyness. I don't like the noise. If I'm working, I need classical music. So there's so many different things that I need to set the scene. Would you say that's the environment plays a part within the work? Yeah.
So I always make sure that I'm working in the way that suits my student, adult or child best. And that is such a broad spectrum. So I've got a lot of my students also have ADHD, with dyslexia is super common, and ASD, or a multitude of things really. So I have some students that everything's got to be go, go, go and really fast paced, because that's how they're locked in. And if it's slow, they're bored and their brain switches. Some of them almost need two things at once, because one thing isn't enough to occupy their brain. That's a whole other story. Fascinating. Whereas other children, they might come to me really anxious. So the first thing that they've got to be calm and grounded. And as you say, it's you can't work if you're overwhelmed or whatever, So for you, the noise of the coffee shop, I'm guessing, is too much, is overwhelming. So you can't take information in, because in that point your brain is in fight or flight mode, and then you literally can't think, because you're not supposed to be thinking. You're supposed to be running away or fighting. Yeah. So it depends on my student. I'll use whatever seems to work for them. Now, for some of my older teenagers, they have to tell me about something that happened at school and get it off their chest, and then they're grounded. For some, it's a breathing technique. For some, it's telling some jokes. It's whatever works for that student, but the environment is definitely important. And also, they can't if they're hungry, that's no good. If they're thirsty, that's no good. Some of my students want to wrap themselves in a blanket because they feel better learning that way. Yeah. So I think making sure my whoever I'm working with feels, first of all, that I've heard what they need and that they're comfortable, that is definitely a first step. Yeah.
That has been incredible, Lou. We're getting inundated with questions. I'm sure there'll be questions in the actual chat. But I know you're an incredibly busy person. But would you mind answering some of the questions that come in over a period of time for this? Because this has been an absolute fascinating topic of conversation, and I know we've literally opened. We'll open the floodgates with, oh my goodness, there's Wonderful. A different way to life within this side of it. But no, it's been absolutely incredible. Will you please promise me, will you come back to University Stories and share some more techniques and things?
I would love to. I'd really love to. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm delighted this has opened up a new conversation. That's wonderful. Really appreciate that.
If people want, I will put your details in there. But if people want to get in contact with yourself, Lou, the work that you do, could you just tell us briefly how they would do that?
Absolutely. So I have a website, which is www.unlock-learning.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn as Lou Barnes, L-O-U, Barnes. I am on Facebook as Unlock Learning, and it says Educational Consultant. On the website, you can book a call with me, and there's email. You can send me an email. I love to chat. If you book a call, please come and talk to me, because I really want to know about people and what the best way forward is for them as well. So yeah, just delighted for people to get in contact.
Wonderful. We will put your details on there, Lou. Lou, thank you so much for being our guest on University Stories. Thank you for the incredible work that you have done, and that you continue to do. And we will definitely welcome you back with open arms to another episode, so we can hear more about the incredible work you're doing. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So, guys, that was Lou Barnes. Please, please, please do get in touch and contact with her if you have any questions on the incredible work that she's doing. And please do reach out to them. A massive thank you to our sponsor again. All the details on that, if you are looking to learn the language, then please do reach out to them. A massive thank you to everyone that got involved and listened to this. And please do let us know if you would like to share your stories on Neurodiversity Stories, and welcome you back for our next show with another incredible guest. Take care, guys, and we'll speak to you soon.